You believed you found your soulmate, turns out it was a test. Don't scroll, stay right here, because this didn't begin with pain or doubt, it began with certainty, the kind that settles into your chest and makes you feel chosen, seen, finally understood. You didn't stumble into this connection by accident, it felt orchestrated, timed, almost sacred, and you trusted it because it felt like the answer to prayers you never said out loud. Listen to this carefully, because in the beginning everything lined up too perfectly. The conversations flowed like you'd known each other forever. Silence felt comfortable, not awkward. You didn't have to explain your past or soften your truth. You felt recognized, like your soul had found its mirror, and when something feels that familiar, you stop questioning it. Don't skip this part, because you told yourself this was different from everything before. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't confusion. This felt calm, grounded, destined. You believed that after everything you'd been through, the universe was finally rewarding you with something real. Stay right here, because signs seem to confirm it. Repeating numbers. Perfect timing. Moments that felt too aligned to ignore. You thought the universe was saying yes, this is the one, this is your soulmate, hold on. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You opened yourself fully. You trusted deeply. You invested emotionally without hesitation because it didn't feel risky. It felt safe. And safety made you vulnerable in ways you hadn't been in a long time. Listen closely, because the test never announces itself as a test. It arrives disguised as certainty. It shows up as comfort. It feels like home before you realize it's asking you to choose something important about yourself. Stay with me, because slowly, subtly, things began to shift. Not dramatically. Not cruelly. Just enough to create quiet discomfort you couldn't immediately name. Small moments where you felt unheard. Slight hesitations where there used to be ease. And each time, you told yourself it was nothing. Don't skip this, because the test wasn't about whether they loved you. It was about whether you would listen to yourself when something didn't align. And at first, you didn't. You explained things away. You chose patience. You believed love required endurance. Listen to this carefully, because you began adjusting yourself without noticing. You softened your needs. You delayed difficult conversations. You chose harmony over honesty. And you called it maturity, growth, emotional intelligence. Stay right here, because the universe wasn't watching how long you could hold on. It was watching how much of yourself you would give up to keep something comfortable. Don't scroll, because the hardest part wasn't the confusion, it was how convincing the illusion was. The connection still felt deep. There were still moments of closeness that pulled you back into hope. And those moments made you doubt your instincts. Listen closely, because tests don't always remove things from your life. Sometimes they reveal how you show up when something feels meaningful. This one asked, will you speak your truth or stay silent to keep peace? Stay with me, because every time you ignored that inner nudge, the test deepened. Not to punish you, but to clarify the lesson. To show you where you still equated love with self-abandonment. Don't skip this part, because you felt it in your body before you understood it mentally. Tightness in your chest. A sense of waiting. A quiet anxiety that didn't match the story you were telling yourself. Your intuition was speaking, even when you weren't listening. Listen to this carefully, because you weren't failing the test by feeling confused. You were being invited to choose differently than you had in the past. Stay right here, because at some point, the realization began forming. Not all at once, but piece by piece. You saw patterns. You noticed imbalance. You recognized how much emotional weight you were carrying alone. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You realized that real soul connections don't require you to shrink. They don't ask you to stay quiet to keep them alive. They don't leave you questioning your worth. Listen closely, because the test wasn't about losing them. It was about finding yourself. It was about whether you would honor your needs even when it risked the connection. Stay with me, because that realization hurt. You grieved the soulmate story you believed in. You mourned the future you imagined. And that grief was real, even if others couldn't see it. Don't skip this, because grief doesn't mean the connection was fake. It means it was meaningful. But meaning doesn't always equal permanence. Listen to this carefully, because the test revealed something powerful. You are capable of deep connection. You are capable of trusting again. And you are also capable of choosing yourself when something doesn't align. Stay right here, because once you see it as a test, not a failure, everything changes. You stop blaming yourself. You stop romanticizing what hurt you. You start integrating the lesson. Don't scroll, because this wasn't a test to break you. It was a test to refine you. To show you that love doesn't require silence. That destiny doesn't demand suffering. That soul connections don't punish honesty. Listen closely, because what you learned here will shape every connection that follows. You'll recognize red flags sooner. You'll speak earlier. You'll walk away from ambiguity instead of waiting in it. Stay with me, because this test didn't mean you were wrong for believing. It meant you were brave enough to open your heart. And bravery always comes with lessons. Don't skip this part, because you didn't lose a soulmate. You gained discernment. You gained clarity. You gained a deeper relationship with yourself. Listen to this carefully, because sometimes the universe sends a test disguised as love to prepare you for the love that won't test your self-worth. Stay right here, because the story isn't over. This was only the first chapter of a much healthier connection waiting ahead. Don't scroll, because if this message feels personal, it's because your soul recognizes the lesson now. Trust that awareness. And if this resonated with you, take a moment to like this, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And please, stay till the end of this journey, because every test you pass brings you closer to the love that won't require you to lose yourself. Don't scroll, stay right here, because once you recognize it was a test, not a destiny, the emotional ground beneath you starts shifting in ways you didn't expect. At first, it feels disorienting, like waking up from a vivid dream and realizing the room looks different in daylight. You don't immediately feel stronger. You feel quieter. More aware. And that awareness asks you to sit with truths you once avoided. Listen to this carefully, because the test doesn't end when the connection ends. It continues in the moments after, when you replay everything with new eyes. You notice how often you dismissed your discomfort. How frequently you told yourself to be patient instead of honest. How easily you labeled self-sacrifice as love. And seeing that doesn't make you weak, it makes you honest. Don't skip this part, because the pain now isn't just about losing them. It's about realizing how much of yourself you bent to keep the illusion alive. You remember the times you felt something was off but stayed quiet. The times you waited instead of asking. The times you hoped instead of clarifying. And that realization lands heavy. Stay right here, because grief shows up differently now. It's not just grief for the person, it's grief for the version of you who believed love required endurance. Who thought being chosen meant staying agreeable. Who thought silence was maturity. Let that grief move through you. It's part of releasing an old identity. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You may feel embarrassed for believing so deeply. For trusting so fully. For imagining a future that never formed. But belief isn't foolish. It's courageous. The test wasn't to punish your hope, it was to show you how you treat yourself when hope is involved. Listen closely, because you start noticing patterns beyond this one connection. Other moments in your life where you stayed too long. Other relationships where you waited for clarity that never came. Other situations where you ignored your intuition to keep peace. The test connects the dots. Stay with me, because this is where responsibility replaces blame. Not responsibility for how things ended, but responsibility for how you show up moving forward. You realize you can't control who stays, but you can control whether you abandon yourself to keep them. Don't skip this, because anger may surface now. Not explosive anger, but steady, grounding anger. Anger that asks why you accepted so little clarity. Why you stayed silent when something felt wrong. Let that anger inform you, not consume you. Listen to this carefully, because anger here is protective. It's your boundaries waking up. It's your self-respect stretching after being dormant. It's the part of you saying, this won't happen again. Stay right here, because you begin questioning the stories you told yourself about love. That love should feel effortless. That soulmates never require communication. That real connections don't need clarification. Those stories crumble, and in their place, something more realistic begins forming. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You start understanding that tests often arrive as what we want most, because that's where our deepest patterns reveal themselves. This connection wasn't random. It showed you exactly where you still equated love with silence. Listen closely, because silence becomes loud in hindsight. You hear all the things that were never said. You feel the weight of all the moments you chose not to speak. And instead of wishing you could go back, you start accepting that this awareness came exactly when you were ready. Stay with me, because acceptance doesn't mean approval. It means clarity. It means no longer arguing with reality. It means understanding that something can feel profound and still not be meant to stay. Don't skip this part, because you start reclaiming parts of yourself that went quiet. Your opinions. Your needs. Your expectations. You notice how it feels to express them again, even just to yourself. It feels awkward at first, but freeing. Listen to this carefully, because the test refined your intuition. You trust it more now. You notice when something feels off sooner. You no longer override that feeling with fantasy or fear. Stay right here, because you also learned something important about timing. Not everything that arrives is meant to last. Some things arrive to prepare you, to stretch you, to show you where growth is needed before something deeper can take root. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You may still miss them. Missing doesn't disappear just because understanding arrives. But the missing feels different now. Less desperate. More reflective. You miss what you thought it was, not what it became. Listen closely, because you stop romanticizing the struggle. You stop telling yourself that love has to hurt to be meaningful. You realize that peace isn't boring, it's regulated. It's safe. And safe doesn't mean shallow. Stay with me, because this is where compassion deepens. You forgive yourself for staying. You forgive yourself for believing. You forgive yourself for not knowing sooner. And that forgiveness lightens your chest in ways nothing else could. Don't skip this, because you also begin to forgive them without excusing. You understand that they were part of the test too. Not villains. Not saviors. Just mirrors reflecting lessons you needed to see. Listen to this carefully, because the test wasn't about proving your worth. It was about proving your alignment with yourself. And alignment sometimes requires letting go of what feels good but isn't good for you. Stay right here, because you begin noticing how your standards change naturally. You're no longer impressed by intensity. You're drawn to consistency. You're no longer attracted to mystery. You value clarity. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You imagine future connections differently. You see yourself speaking sooner. Asking questions without fear. Walking away from ambiguity without guilt. And that vision feels calm, not lonely. Listen closely, because loneliness shifts now too. It no longer scares you into settling. It becomes a signal to reconnect with yourself, not to rush into the wrong arms. Stay with me, because you realize that passing the test doesn't mean you didn't feel pain. It means you learned from it. You integrated the lesson. You became more whole. Don't skip this part, because you're no longer chasing closure from them. Closure is forming inside you through understanding. Through acceptance. Through self-respect. Listen to this carefully, because the universe doesn't test you to see how much you can suffer. It tests you to see how much you can honor yourself when something meaningful challenges you. Stay right here, because this lesson will protect you going forward. You won't mistake comfort for compatibility. You won't confuse familiarity with fate. You won't stay silent when something matters. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You understand that love that requires you to shrink is not love that can grow. Listen closely, because this test didn't end your belief in soul connections. It refined it. You now know that real soul bonds invite honesty, not endurance. Stay with me, because you didn't fail this test. You learned from it. And learning is what allows the next connection to meet you at a higher level of truth. Don't skip this final reflection. What you believed was a soulmate wasn't a mistake. It was a lesson wrapped in familiarity, sent to prepare you for something more aligned. And as you carry this awareness forward, you'll notice something powerful. You won't need to be tested the same way again. You've already passed the part that mattered most, choosing yourself without closing your heart. That is how the story continues. Don't scroll, stay right here, because this is where the test stops feeling like something that happened to you and starts revealing who you are becoming because of it. This is the phase most people rush through, but you can't rush this one. This is where the lesson settles into your bones, where it reshapes your instincts, your reactions, your standards, quietly and permanently. Listen to this carefully, because now you're no longer asking what went wrong. That question has lost its power. Instead, you're asking something deeper, something more honest. You're asking why you tolerated what you did, why you stayed quiet when your inner voice was speaking, why you kept hoping when clarity was absent. These questions aren't cruel. They're liberating. Don't skip this part, because this is where self-awareness replaces self-blame. You stop replaying the story to punish yourself. You replay it to understand yourself. You notice how quickly you override discomfort. How easily you doubt your intuition when attachment is involved. How familiar it feels to wait instead of ask. Stay right here, because this wasn't the first time you learned these patterns. This connection didn't create them. It activated them. It touched something old inside you, something learned early, something that once kept you safe but no longer serves you now. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You begin recognizing how love and self-abandonment became tangled somewhere along the way. How patience became a badge of honor. How silence felt like strength. How being chosen felt more important than choosing yourself. Listen closely, because this realization hurts, but it also explains so much. It explains why the test felt so convincing. Why it felt destined. Why it felt familiar. Familiarity doesn't always mean alignment. Sometimes it means repetition. Stay with me, because this is where compassion deepens. You stop judging the version of yourself who stayed. You see them clearly now. They were hopeful. They were loyal. They were doing the best they could with the awareness they had at the time. Don't skip this, because compassion is what allows growth without hardening. Without compassion, lessons turn into walls. With compassion, they turn into wisdom. Listen to this carefully, because wisdom doesn't shout. It settles. It changes how you feel in your body when something isn't right. It shortens the gap between discomfort and action. It teaches you to pause before explaining things away. Stay right here, because you start noticing how your nervous system responds differently now. Situations that once excited you feel draining. Inconsistency no longer feels mysterious. It feels unsettling. And that shift tells you something important has changed. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You're no longer attracted to potential. You're attracted to presence. You're no longer impressed by words. You pay attention to follow through. You're no longer drawn to intensity. You crave steadiness. Listen closely, because this is where the test rewires your definition of love. Love isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of honesty. Love isn't how long you can endure uncertainty. It's how safe you feel to express yourself. Stay with me, because you also begin noticing how much lighter you feel without constant emotional monitoring. You're not scanning for signs. You're not waiting for reassurance. You're not adjusting yourself to maintain harmony. That wait is gone. Don't skip this part, because freedom often feels strange at first. You may mistake calm for emptiness. You may wonder if something is missing. What's missing is the anxiety you once confused for connection. Listen to this carefully, because peace can feel unfamiliar when chaos was normalized. But unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It means new. Stay right here, because you begin trusting yourself again. You trust your reactions. You trust your discomfort. You trust your needs. And trust in yourself creates a foundation no external connection ever could. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You stop asking if you were too much. You start asking if you were met enough. That shift changes everything. Listen closely, because you also recognize that tests don't come to take things away from you. They come to show you what you've been tolerating out of fear. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Stay with me, because this awareness doesn't make you rigid. It makes you clear. You're open, but discerning. Soft, but grounded. Loving, but not self-erasing. Don't skip this, because your boundaries now feel internal, not performative. You don't announce them. You feel them. And when something crosses them, you move without drama. Listen to this carefully, because you also stop romanticizing sacrifice. You no longer believe love requires you to lose parts of yourself. You understand now that love should expand you, not compress you. Stay right here, because the test also revealed your capacity. Your capacity to love deeply. Your capacity to trust. Your capacity to grow through pain without becoming bitter. That matters. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You didn't fail because it didn't last. You succeeded because you learned. Listen closely, because the strongest part of you now is not your hope, it's your discernment. Not your endurance, but your self-respect. Not your silence, but your voice. Stay with me, because future connections will feel different. They won't activate anxiety the same way. They won't require you to guess. They won't demand patience without reassurance. Don't skip this part, because you will notice red flags sooner. Not because you're suspicious, but because you're attuned. Your body knows before your mind does. Listen to this carefully, because you also begin choosing differently in small ways. You speak earlier. You ask clearer questions. You walk away from ambiguity without waiting for it to become painful. Stay right here, because this is what passing the test actually looks like. Not winning someone back. Not proving your worth. But refusing to abandon yourself again. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You understand that tests are not punishments. They are preparation. Listen closely, because what comes next in your life will meet a different version of you. A version that listens to themselves. A version that values clarity. A version that knows the difference between fate and familiarity. Stay with me, because you didn't lose a soulmate. You lost an illusion that was blocking the path to something healthier. Don't skip this, because the lesson doesn't ask you to stop believing in love. It asks you to believe in yourself within love. Listen to this carefully, because real soul connections don't test your worth. They honor it. They don't confuse you for long. They clarify. Stay right here, because you're no longer afraid of being tested again. You trust yourself to respond differently now. Don't scroll, because this chapter didn't break you. It refined you. And when you look back one day, you won't remember this as the moment you were disappointed. You'll remember it as the moment you learned to choose alignment over attachment. That is how the test completes its work. Don't scroll, stay right here, because this is where the test finally releases you, not by erasing what happened, but by changing how it lives inside you. This is the phase where the lesson stops feeling heavy and starts feeling steady. You're no longer trying to figure it out. You're living differently because of it. Listen to this carefully, because the biggest change now is internal. You're not thinking about them as often. Not because they didn't matter, but because they no longer define your emotional center. The connection has shifted from something you revolve around to something you carry as knowledge, and that shift is subtle but powerful. Don't skip this part, because this is where peace starts replacing processing. Your mind isn't looping the same questions anymore. You're not searching for missing pieces or alternate endings. You've accepted that what happened gave you exactly what you needed, even if it didn't give you what you wanted. Stay right here, because you begin noticing how grounded you feel in your own decisions. You don't second-guess yourself as much. You don't over-explain your choices. You trust your judgment in a way you didn't before, and that trust feels like strength, not arrogance. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You start realizing that the test didn't just show you what wasn't right for you, it showed you what is. You now know what clarity feels like. You know what emotional safety feels like. You know what it means to be present without tension. Listen closely, because your body reflects this change before your mind fully acknowledges it. Your shoulders aren't as tight. Your breathing feels deeper. Your sleep is steadier. These aren't small things. They're signs your nervous system no longer feels like it has to stay on alert. Stay with me, because this is where you understand something important. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about integration. You didn't erase the memory. You absorbed the lesson so completely that it no longer needs to announce itself as pain. Don't skip this, because you may notice moments where you respond differently than you would have before. Someone is vague, and instead of waiting, you ask. Someone pulls back, and instead of chasing, you pause. Someone avoids clarity, and instead of rationalizing, you step away. These moments are quiet victories. Listen to this carefully, because this is what passing the test looks like in real life. Not grand gestures. Not dramatic declarations. Just self-respect showing up consistently. Stay right here, because you also notice how much easier it is to enjoy your own company now. You're not using distractions to fill an ache. You're not numbing yourself to avoid feeling. You're simply present, and presence feels enough. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You might still think of them occasionally, but the thought doesn't pull you backward. It passes like a memory, not a longing. And that's how you know something has truly shifted. Listen closely, because you're no longer measuring love by intensity. You're measuring it by peace, by consistency, by how safe it feels to be yourself without editing. Stay with me, because your standards are no longer theoretical. They're lived. You don't have to list them out. You feel when something meets them and when it doesn't. And you trust that feeling. Don't skip this part, because you also become more honest with others now. You say what you feel sooner. You don't wait for resentment to build. You don't sacrifice truth for harmony. And that honesty doesn't create chaos, it creates clarity. Listen to this carefully, because clarity repels what isn't aligned and attracts what is. You're not forcing anything. You're not manifesting through desperation. You're simply showing up as you are, and letting the rest respond. Stay right here, because you may notice fewer connections around you, but the ones that remain feel real. Grounded. Mutual. You're no longer surrounded by noise. You're surrounded by resonance. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You realize that the test also healed something older inside you. A belief that you had to be chosen to be worthy. A belief that love had to be earned through patience. Those beliefs no longer run your life. Listen closely, because you stop needing reassurance to feel secure. You generate it internally. You don't need someone else's consistency to feel whole. You enjoy it when it's there, but you don't depend on it. Stay with me, because this is where emotional independence settles in. Not detachment. Not avoidance. But wholeness. The kind that allows you to love without losing yourself. Don't skip this, because you may notice how differently you handle uncertainty now. You don't panic. You don't spiral. You wait briefly, observe, and then decide. You're no longer stuck in emotional limbo. Listen to this carefully, because the test strengthened your discernment. You now recognize the difference between attraction and alignment instantly. Attraction pulls. Alignment settles. Stay right here, because you're also learning to trust timing again. Not timing as an excuse to wait, but timing as a filter. What's meant to meet you will meet you when you're able to stay yourself inside it. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You understand now that some connections are meant to wake you up, not stay with you. And once awakened, you don't need to repeat the lesson. Listen closely, because you've stopped asking the universe, why did this happen to me? You're now asking, what did this prepare me for? And that question carries power instead of pain. Stay with me, because you're no longer afraid of tests. You trust yourself to pass them by choosing alignment over attachment every time. Don't skip this part, because future love will feel different. It won't rush you. It won't confuse you. It won't require endurance. It will feel steady, open, and mutual. Listen to this carefully, because when that love arrives, you won't have to convince yourself it's real. You won't need signs to confirm it. You'll know because you won't be shrinking inside it. Stay right here, because this is what transformation looks like. Quiet. Grounded. Unshakable. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now. You didn't lose a soulmate. You gained clarity, self-respect, and alignment. And those are not consolation prizes. They are foundations. Listen closely, because the test didn't end your belief in deep connection. It refined it. You now know that real soul bonds don't test your silence. They invite your voice. Stay with me, because the strongest version of you didn't come from holding on. It came from letting the lesson change you. Don't skip this final reflection. You believed you found your soulmate, and it turned out to be a test. But the real success wasn't passing or failing. The real success was becoming someone who will never abandon themselves again, no matter how meaningful the connection feels. That is the lesson that stays.